Hey guys, welcome back to Real Housewives Recaps. Today I'm so excited. This is part 2 of Devil Wears Prada. Man, I'm loving this recap so much. I really am. I'm loving the deep dive in this movie. So much interesting behind the scenes information we're digging up. And I'm really having fun with it, talking about the differences between the book and the movie and going over all the details. You know I love to do this. So let's get into part 2. But before we do, I do want to remind you this is the kind of stuff I do over on Patreon. I love to do the behind the scenes research when it's available, and I'm going through the original Sex and the City series. And I'm looking at like actors that became well known after the series, all that kind of stuff. So if you're into that, check it out at Patreon. All the plans include the Sex and the City deep dive. And then, let's see, the middle tier includes Always Sunny, and the top tier is Picking What We Watch. So check that out if you're interested. But if not, let's get into this show. Okay, so we left off the first episode, picking up this one where Miranda had called Andy into her office and said she needed just a whole list of things, but the one that Andy's tasked with is the 10 or 15 skirts from Calvin Klein. So she tries to ask more questions. That's a definite big plot point in the book, is you're not allowed to ask her any questions. Instead, she likes to drop very vague information on people and basically see how they handle it. And it's very hard to figure out, but a lot of it is detective work. So we see Andy at the beginning struggling with this part of the job, and that's something, again, that resonates in the book. She really struggled. It was actually shorts in the book that she had to go in search of. All these different shorts, and they didn't know size, color, so all these designers had sent everything over, and basically she had millions to pick from, and she packed one pair. I mean, it's just like the most ridiculous waste, but whatever. Okay, 10 to 15 skirts, Calvin Klein. So Emily has sent Andy. She'll deal with the rest. Andy's got to get over to Calvin Klein. While trying to get these skirts, she gets a phone call from Emily that she's to pick up 25 scarves order from Hermes. So that's, again, something from the book. That's Miranda's signature piece. She always has one tied either around her neck, somewhere on her outfit, or on her handbag, somewhere. So she's to pick up 25 more, also hot Starbucks. Just a whole laundry list of things. So we see Andy trying to put this all together and to get it all right. She's trying her hardest, but it's never quite good enough. Like, she's struggling. Emily doesn't seem to understand that things take time, and obviously neither does Miranda. Andy comes rushing back. Emily's yelling at her, "Where have you been? What took you so long? I have to pee." So it just reinforces that they are not to leave their desk thing. They have to stay at their desk. They cannot leave because the phones cannot go to voicemail. So this is where we get to meet Serena, Emily's friend. And of course, it's played by Gisele Bündchen. So Gisele's thing is she agreed to do the movie on the condition that she did not want to play a model. So she plays a worker, in a different department. So we get to see her there, which is a really fun cameo. She has a very small role, but I do like her later when she notices Andy, but we'll get to that. Okay, so it's explained that Emily only gets 20 minutes for lunch, thereby Andy will only get 15 for lunch. And when Emily gets back, then Andy can go. And as they're walking off, they're laughing at what Andy's wearing. What exactly is she wearing? And Emily says her grandmother's skirt. So nobody is showing Andy any of the love. They're definitely ragging on her outfit and, just making her feel awful. She goes to lunch, and this was, again, something from the book. She would pick the soup line because it's the one with no weight, because everybody was afraid of it because it usually was made like full. The chef refused to not put like butter and cream and things and stuff like that in it that make it taste so good. And so she would eat it, but nobody else would. In the movie here, when she's dishing it out, Nigel says, "Do you know that cellulite is the main ingredient in corn chowder?" So the whole thing is none of them, she talks about how none of them eat. And she's a size 6, but he's like, no, everybody here is a size 2 or a size 4. And it just gets more ridiculous. I mean, it's again detailed very much in the book, very dated way of thinking. So when she says she's a 6, he says it's the new 14. She spills soup on her sweater, and he says, I'm sure you have more poly blend. So he's definitely, we end up liking him, but he definitely gives some cold lines. He's been in the business a long time. So she doesn't see this point in changing herself because of the job, and we know how this is going to go. Nigel's phone rings, so apparently Miranda pushed the meeting up early, so Miranda is back. And you guys, one of my absolute favorite scenes in the movie. This is the cerulean scene, and I absolutely love it. Okay, so again, it's one of the most iconic scenes in the movie. This is where we really get to see Miranda show off her knowledge of fashion. Let me tell you some behind-the-scenes stuff about this. Did you know that originally it was not going to be about her sweater, but instead the skirt that they focused? And Miranda was going to go through this whole history of plaid. Pat Field is on record talking about she had already started pulling things from Vivienne Westwood, which apparently did a lot of plaid, and trying to tie all that together. But then they decided cerulean would be the key ingredient that they tie together. And actually, it was cerulean because Meryl Streep got to pick which one she liked the best, and that was the one she picked. She had the choices of the blues that she listed off, the different shades of blue, and she picked cerulean. And that was going to be the connecting thread that we see here in this scene. So because it's my favorite scene, I just have to read part of it really quick. Here we go. That lumpy blue sweater, for instance, because you're trying to tell the world that you take yourself too seriously to care about what you put on your back. But what you don't know is that sweater's not just blue. It's not turquoise. It's not lapis. It's actually cerulean. You're also blindly unaware of the fact that in 2002, Oscar de la Renta did a collection of cerulean gowns. And I think it was Yves Saint Laurent, wasn't it, who showed cerulean jackets, military jackets. And then cerulean quickly showed up in the collections of 8 different designers. Then it filtered down through the department stores and then trickled down to some tragic, casual corner where you no doubt fished it out of some clearance bin. However, that blue represents millions of dollars, countless jobs, and it's sort of comical how you think you've made the choice that exempts you from the fashion industry when in fact you're wearing the sweater that was selected for you by the people in this room from a pile of stuff. You guys, I love that scene so much. I can't even pretend to do it justice like Meryl does. It's so good. It's such a great scene. I love it. Everything about it. I just love that she's naming the different shades of blue. I love that it because otherwise I think without this scene, you would be like, what's the point? Who is this woman? What does she know? And it shows that she knows her stuff and has the skills to back it up. It doesn't excuse her being an a-hole, but it shows that she does have the skills and she knows what she's talking about in the fashion industry. You can also clearly see Emily in the background nodding her head in disapproval of Andy and the way she's kind of being toward Miranda and not knowing the things that, I guess not caring about the things that seem to be important to everybody else. Okay. Back at the apartment, Andy is explaining that Miranda's just not happy unless everyone is panicked and nauseous all the time. She talks about the clackers, again, a big part of the book, talking about the clackers, meaning the noise that the shoes make as they shuffle down the hall and into the elevators and stuff. So he is a chef. Again, in the book, he was a teacher, but he's a chef here, and he makes her this special grilled cheese full of all this really expensive cheese. And she's like, no, all the girls there are so skinny. I can't do it. So I kind of talked about in the last episode. I'm going to bring it up here. So in the movie, the character Andy supposedly goes from a 6 to a 4 when she, starts changing her dressing and all that stuff. And during the filming of the movie, Anne Hathaway has publicly said she went from a size 6 to a size 4. So then we move on to a montage of Miranda. She's throwing coats, she's throwing purses, she's demanding things, she's being very vague on the things that she has to have and what she expects, and it's kind of a whirlwind. Now, the interesting thing about this is Andre Leon Talley, who I just find endlessly fascinating. I actually read his book. He talks about that a lot of this stuff is true, except for that Anna Wintour would never throw down her handbags like that. They're too fancy. So again, it's interesting because you kind of see it's a way to show time, right? Andy starts out clueless and scared, but then she starts to get more confident, although she's still very nervous, but she starts to get more confident as time goes on how to handle things. Like when Miranda asks for certain people to be on the phone, she used to have to look it up. Now she can just do it by heart. She knows what she's becoming. Emily, right? She's like figuring this stuff out and trying to anticipate Miranda's needs. She's taking things a little bit more seriously. So she mentions that she's very happy that Miranda will be in Miami for the weekend, so maybe she'll have the weekend off. And her dad's coming into town. They have all these big plans, so of course we know where this is going. And she goes out to dinner with her dad, and he says he's worried because she just isn't following her dreams. She always wanted to write. She even turned down law school that she was accepted in because she just really wanted to write. And now she's here at this job and she's not doing that. She has explained the whole year thing and why this is an investment in the future. While she's trying to talk to him, her phone rings. It is Miranda, and her flight's been canceled because of an absurd weather problem, according to her. So there's a hurricane, and literally Andy is just trying to help her arrange a private jet. She's calling around. Everybody's like, nope, flights are grounded. Nothing you can do. And Miranda is just getting more and more mad, saying, call everybody we know. Does Donatella have a jet? Call her. Her dad is trying to keep her grounded and saying, what does she want you to do? Call the National Guard and have her airlifted out? And Andy thinks and says, can they do that? But so Miranda just continues to yell, but there's literally nothing that Andy could do. And every time she thinks this is it, I'm getting fired. And again, a callback to the book. This is something that happened quite a bit in the book, as Miranda let you feel like you really messed up. You never got credit for the good work. You only got told off for the bad stuff, and that you were like this close to being fired at all times. So we go to the office where Andy is trying to apologize to Miranda about the hurricane and not being able to get her out. Miranda gives her a speech about how she always hires the same slim, stylish girl who worships a magazine. She took a chance on her because of her impressive resume and the work ethic speech, but she made a mistake, basically. So Emily starts crying. She walks out. She goes to Nigel's. Nigel at first is cold to her, and you think he's going to be mean, but he ends up giving her a pretty interesting talk about, you may think you're trying your best, but you're not, because you're not letting yourself even try in the fashion department kind of thing. So she's like, basically, teach me a wise one, and this is where things get fun. Because he gives her this wake up speech, this wake up sweetheart speech, and she doesn't want to screw it up. This makes her decide she wants to try even harder to make this work. What do I do? And then Nigel, and then it trails off, and he's like, oh no. So he takes her into the closet, this big, huge closet. We saw something like that on Sex and the City, the closet at Vogue. Remember how Carrie would say it? I'm drunk at Vogue. So she's in the closet. Nigel cannot stop insulting her, saying he doesn't have anything in a size 6. They're all sample sizes 2 and 4. So he hands her things like a giant poncho, and she's like, thanks a lot, man. But he finds some Dolce for her. He finds some Jimmy Choo shoes, some Manolo Blahniks. He starts handing her fancy purses, a jacket, and he says, we need to get you some Chanel. So this is one of my favorite parts, too, when they do the transformation and we get to see how her look changes. I don't love her new haircut when it changes, but I guess it's better than the mousy thing she had rocking here. This is where I'm going to end it because, again, I love when we go into the whole makeover look, and when she comes in and she has a new attitude and people are taking notice and the new look, and I'm going to talk about that on the next episode. Again, this is so much fun to cover. I'm really enjoying it. So if this is something you're enjoying, do let me know in the comments. And again, if you're interested, check out Patreon because we're doing deep dives on all things Sex and the City over there. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Leave me comments. Those always help out the videos. And I hope you guys have a fantastic day. I will talk to you again soon. Stay healthy and safe. Take care. Bye-bye.